It's great to be here, not just as the Jackson County Executive or a Jackson County resident, but as the Chair of the Democratic Party. Thank you so much. I want to make sure I mention Matt Teeter. I think you were introduced, but thank you, Matt, for being Executive Director of the State Party. And it's my absolute honor here in just a minute to introduce one of the greatest Attorney Generals, not just in the state of Missouri, but frankly around this country, which I'm going to get to here in just a second. You know, as we look at the 2012 election cycle, I think one of the things we can be very proud about and we can really steel ourselves for is we have a great ticket from top to bottom. Whether it's Jay Nixon, Claire McCaskill, the other great candidates we have great Democrats running for office, which makes me very optimistic about 2012. But beyond having great candidates, we've got great opponents on the Republican side. Here's it just today. David Spence, the individual running against our governor, Jay Nixon. You know, for about 30 years, he's gone around the state and said that he had a degree in economics from the University of Missouri. About 30 years he said that. Well, he was sort of half right. Did anybody see this? He has a degree in economics, but it's home economics. It's a little bit of a difference. If I want to bake a pie, I'm going to call David Spence. If I want to run the state of Missouri or handle prevailing wage, I'm going to call Jay Nixon. We have great candidates. And another great candidate at the top of this ticket is our Attorney General, Chris Koster. Really someone who's done an absolutely amazing job in that office, standing up for working people, standing up for all of us, doing great work in that office. If you think about, he's a man that's not just a great politician, he's a real prosecutor and a real Attorney General. You know, little things that don't get a lot of press. As a former prosecutor, I can tell you, right now inside the Attorney General's office in the state of Missouri, they have 65 open homicide cases. Chris is a hands-on guy. He's actively involved in all those prosecutions. 65 open cases. Medicaid fraud. Missouri leads the nation in Medicaid fraud prosecutions. It's Chris Koster showing the way. Prevailing wage. Prevailing wage. Here's someone that really, very rare thing in the state of Missouri, continues to put businesses that violate prevailing wage, violate our laws, continue to put them on the debarment list so they can't come back and continue to commit the same crimes over and over again. Domestic violence. Putting together a commission, advocating for women, advocating for those that are the victims of domestic violence. Once again, Chris Koster leading the way. We have, in the state of Missouri, one of the best attorney generals not only we've ever had, but frankly in the state of Missouri, and certainly in the United States. Not only is he a leader on all those issues, but as I always tell him, he has the best hair in politics. So it's my absolute honor, my privilege to introduce to you the great Attorney General of the great state of Missouri, my friend, your friend, Chris Koster. Let me say one last thing. I missed my son's basketball game to introduce this guy. So how about that? Not many people don't do that for Chris Koster.
Thank you. That's terrible. You should not have done that for me. But I appreciate it. It is good to be home in Kansas City. As I was driving in here this evening, as we were driving in from Jefferson City, and I apologize that I have made all of you wait a little bit too long. We had a little trouble getting out of town tonight. It struck me that it was almost 20 years ago. It's funny how quickly we get old in this business. It was almost 20 years ago that I went down to Sneed's Barbecue down at 58 and Holmes Road and made my first political request to run for office. And back at that time, I was running for Cass County prosecutor. And it's great to have Teresa Hensley, who is doing a terrific job in that office here tonight. I feel incredibly close to the Cass County prosecutor's office, and to see your successor, excel beyond what you were able to accomplish is gratifying, to say the least. So I went down to, that night I was about to make my first political talk, almost 20 years ago. And I had moved here from St. Louis, Missouri, and I had a talk with my dad. I remember the night that I was about to go do this. My dad was still living in St. Louis at the time, and we had kind of a big argument, to be honest with you, on the telephone. My father never wanted me to go into politics. He thought it was a horrible business. And he was asking me not to go do this, not to sign my name on the dotted line. And I said something along the lines of, Dad, it's okay. If I lose, it's not that big a deal. It's not the end of the world. He said, I'm not worried about whether or not you lose. What the heck are you going to do if you win? And I said, well, we'll cross that bridge if and when that ever happens. But in the 20 years I have worked with the people here in this room, this is what we've tried to do if we win. We've tried to do things that are transformational. You're turning up my voice? Okay. We've tried to do things that are transformational in nature, and we've tried to do them with an air of service around them. When we were working in Cass County, we bonded together with organized labor, and we built something that was truly transformational in Cass County, which is that Cass County courthouse that you see down in the heart of Harrisonville. And we tried to do it in a way that other communities wouldn't have risked. We tried to do it in a way that would take the third fastest growing community in all of Missouri, Cass County, and not only build something that was ready to go on day one and prepared for the modern world, but would last for 50 or 75 or 100 years. Because you only get one chance in government to do it right, usually. You only get one swing at the ball, one bite at the apple in this business. And so we tried to do something that was transformational for this community, and it was by bonding together with organized labor and creating partnerships between government and organized labor that we were able to do something that truly left a lasting mark in that community. Another thing that we tried to be transformational in was in the area of prevailing wage enforcement. Yes. You know, between 1990 and 2004, there were only about 14 prevailing wage prosecutions that ended up by placing those who broke the prevailing wage law on the debarment list throughout the entire state. Of those 14 prosecutions, 5 of them belonged to Cass County. The other 2 belonged to Claire. 2 or 3 of them belonged to Claire McCaskill in Jackson County, and 2 of them belonged to Mike Reardon up in Clay County. All of the effort to stand up for the rights of working people in this state were coming from the Kansas City area. But we tried to leave a mark in this area. And it's a mark that has only grown and expanded now. Today, there are more companies on that debarment list than there have ever been at any one time in the history of the debarment list. Teresa has one on there, the tile company. There are 2 out of Jackson County and 1 out of St. Louis. But it continues to be led from this community and from the partnerships that the folks here in organized labor and the government officials continue to bond over here. Now in Jefferson City, we continue to try and be transformational in the way that we do things. For the first time, the Attorney General's office of this state is putting people on the debarment list and showing businesses that cheat workers in this system that from the northern border to the southern border, from east to west, that these laws, the prevailing wage laws, the laws that stand up for the working men and women of this state, are going to be enforced just like every other criminal law in the state of Missouri. If you break this law, you have committed a crime, and the Attorney General's office is going to enforce it with that attitude in mind. One of the other things that we try and do is really to do everything with an air of service and a sense of service. I get a chance to work with 400 terrific people down at the Attorney General's office, people who are incredibly dedicated, and I wish that for a group of citizens that don't get enough credit, which are the state workers of the state of Missouri, I wish that I could bring them here so that you could meet them and know that on the vast majority of nights they get in before 8:30 in the morning. On the vast majority of nights they work well past 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. I'm positive that at 7 o'clock as we 7 o'clock as we gather here tonight, a third of that office is still working on behalf of you and I and all the people of this state. But one of the things that we really preach down there is to do everything in this government with a sense of service, to do all the simple things right, like get your telephone calls returned the same day they come in, write well, get your emails returned, treat people of this state well, because whether you meet them in the grocery store aisle, or in the banking line, or on the sidelines of your son or daughter's sporting events, these people that we meet, they are our bosses. You are my boss. And we do everything that we can with a true sense of service. I had a telephone call that came in. You know, when you get to be Attorney General, one of the odd things that happens is sometimes it's harder to get your telephone call all the way through to the Attorney General. Like if you try and call the governor right now, sometimes it's hard to get your call all the way through to the governor. It's not always the easiest thing because you get so many incoming calls for a citizen to get all the way through when they need something. But there was a telephone call that came in not too long ago, and it reached my personal secretary. And it was a female from North St. Louis, an African-American woman. And she needed help. And my secretary said that there's a woman on the line who needs some assistance. Do you want to talk with her? And that little bell in the back of my head went off about the sense of service, that everybody, that my job is to serve every single person of this state. And I said, yes, put the woman through. I don't know exactly what she wants. My secretary said, well, her son's in the Potosi Correctional Facility, and she wants to ask you some questions. Well, Teresa has a smile on her face. She understands that this can present some challenges sometimes. For all I know, I could have put the gentleman in the Potosi Correctional Facility. I said, you know what? It's a mother, okay? It's a mother who is concerned about her son. Put her through. So the telephone call comes in, and the mother began to tell us, describe a situation that her son, and the Potosi, for those who are prosecutors or who are not prosecutors in the room, you will know that the Potosi Correctional Facility is where the most serious offenders in the state are sent oftentimes. And the mother said that her son had a pain in his lower abdomen for an extended period of time, in his groin area, to be quite candid about it, and that no one would go by and check on him. And he was sending her letters, and he was afraid, and she was afraid, and nobody would go by and check on him. And I said, let me see what I can do. And I hung up. I got her name, and I got her telephone number. And so I called over to the director's office over at the Department of Corrections, and I said, you know, there's this individual who's in the Potosi Correctional Facility. This is his number. This is where he's housed. And no doctor has gone by in 8 weeks or whatever it had been to check on this individual. And there's this mother who's calling, and the mother is concerned. If you would send a doctor by, that would be very helpful. And then I'll call the mother back, and we'll close the loop that way. And the director immediately understood a mother's concern. And a doctor was sent by, the situation was addressed, and I called the mother back. And she was very appreciative. And the situation resolved itself in favor of his health. I tell that story to a lot of my employees because I want them to know what I want you to know. And that is, whether you live in a great big 6,000 square foot house on the hills at Briarcliff, or whether you live in a tiny 60 square foot cell at the Potosi Correctional Facility, you are my boss. And I am trying at the Attorney General's office to build an organization where everybody feels exactly the same way. You live in the biggest house, you live in the smallest house. Whether you have the biggest house with the most security, or you have the smallest house with the most security, you are my boss. And it is that sense of service to every single one of the 5.8 million Missourians that makes the Democratic Party great, and that separates us as a political party in this state, because we go about things with a tremendous sense of service to everyone. So 2012 is a big year, and all of us feel that sense of service to the ideals that we share as Democrats, And as we move through this wintertime, into the spring, into the summer, and into the heart of this election cycle, I hope you'll be out there with me trying to make sure that the great governor that we have, who has proven himself so admirably through every single challenge that has faced this state over the last 4 years, whether I'm at a fancy club or whether I'm any place out there, and I meet, even when I'm in rooms where there are nothing but Republicans, they say to me, you know what, you guys doing a good job. I can't really complain. He's out there, you know, what he did in Joplin, what he's done around the state. Jay Nixon has set a tone to make all Missourians and all Democrats proud. Claire McCaskill the same way. Up and down this ticket, I know that you'll be out there with me fighting to continue the ideals of transformational government done with a sense of service. So to all of you who have been here with me now for 20 years, so many of the faces in this room really have been with me from the very beginning. Thank you for your friendship, and for Sherry Chaney for making me switch parties too. Thank you for your friendship, and let's go out there and get them and make these democratic ideals live again in Missouri. Thanks.